The Japanese A6M Zero was one of the most feared fighters of the Second World War. It devastated its opponents and was a marvel of engineering. In this video I will teach you a little about the Zero before reviewing it in the game War Thunder. But first, I'd like to show you a small clip from a training video during the Second World War.
That plane? Climbing to heaven like a skyrocket? Heaven's the wrong destination for that baby. That's a Zero, the real McCoy. This is the Japanese Zero. Take a good look at her. Your recognition of the Zero may save your life. Your recognition of the Zero may destroy its life. Watch her closely. Study every characteristic to aid you in your recognition. Look at that nose. A perfect circle broken only by the oil cooler. Note the slight dihedral angle. Look at that low wing and middle tail. Notice the oil cooler and air scoop directly below the engine cowling. See how the fuselage tapers to a point in the rear. It's like a big cigar. Note the tapering edges of the wings, the rounded tips. See how straight the line is from engine to tail. And that tail, see how the leading edge of the vertical piece tapers more than the trailing edge. Look how it curves out to a point away from the nose.
Hi, I'm Banished Advantages, and before we get started teaching you about the Zero, I would like to say that if you find any fact off or not correct, do not hesitate to correct me in the comments politely, where I will then add an annotation in the video. It is greatly appreciated. Finally, I apologize if I do not pronounce words correctly, as they are mostly Japanese. The Zero originated from the need of a fighter to replace the Mitsubishi A6M fighter, which entered service in early 1937. In May, they sent a specification to Mitsubishi and Nakajima for a carrier-based fighter, which would require a speed of 600 kilometers an hour, or 370 miles per hour, and it needed to be able to climb to 3,000 meters, or 9,800 feet, in 3.5 minutes. Additionally, they requested a very heavy armament of two 7.7mm or 30 caliber machine guns, along with two 20mm cannons. It would need to be able to carry 30 and 60 kilogram bombs, or 70 pounds and 130 pound bombs. It needed to be at least as maneuverable as the A6M, however the wingspan was shorter for use on carriers. Taken aback by the Navy's requirements, Nakajima decided not to pursue the project, believing it to be impossible to design such a plane. Fortunately, Mitsubishi's chief designer began making potential designs. Using a new top-secret aluminum, the aircraft Mitsubishi created would be extremely light, fast, and maneuverable, but at the cost of protection and self-sealing fuel tanks. The first Zeros to enter combat service were the A6M2 Model 11s. In 1940 in China, where they quickly proved themselves one of the best fighters in the conflict. Fitted with less than 950 horsepower, the Zero struck fear into the Chinese pilots. After receiving a 950 horsepower engine, the new A6M2 Model 21 was put into production for carrier use. The Model 21 was the most seen Zero that was encountered by Allied pilots. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, 125 Zeros were flown. In 1941, a new engine was fitted on the Zero with 1,130 horsepower, which used a 2-speed supercharger which improved high-altitude performance. Designated the A6M3 Model 32, It also had 100 rounds for each 20mm cannon, opposed to the earlier 60 rounds for each cannon. The Model 32 had a short service life, with a mere 343 planes manufactured. The A6M Model 22 was put into production to improve the Model 32 by having larger fuel tanks for longer range. A few models were also fitted with 30mm cannons for testing purposes, as well as having some shorter, rounded tip wings similar to the A6M5s. The A6M5 Model 52 many say is the most effective variant. It was developed to counter the American F4U Corsair and F6F Hellcat, which were superior in engine power and armament. The A6M5 was designed to be the fastest Zero produced, to help keep up with these new fighters. Among the changes was the improved exhaust and so-called clipped wings, which are wings that are cut shorter. These help the Zero have a faster roll rate. It was given a thicker skin to help obtain faster dive speed. There were multiple models of the A6M5. You had the Co, which had belt-fed cannons instead of drum-fed, giving it more ammunition. The Atsu was given armored glass and a fuel tank fire extinguisher, and one 7.7mm or 30 caliber machine gun was replaced with a 13.2mm or 0.51-inch machine gun. The Hay model was given an armor plate behind the cockpit. The wing skin was thickened even further in multiple areas, and it was given three 13.2mm machine guns. The A6M Model 53 was like the A6M5 Hay in many ways, but was given self-sealing fuel tanks. You also had the A6M7 Model 62, which was a lot like the A6M6, but was used for ground attack and kamikaze. There were A6M8 prototypes during the war, but they were never able to be put into service before the end of the war. That wraps up the history of the Zero, and now we will see how they perform in War Thunder. We're in War Thunder now to review the Zeros. This is a realistic battle in Midway in my regular A6M3, and that's just what you're going to be seeing in the background right now. So we're going to talk about the specifications for each plane first off. Now, before I get started, all of this information is stock. These are all stock plane specifications. And this is very important. This is of update 1.41.27.30. So if you have a later update, some of this specifications might be changed. The Zeros might be terrible or something, you never know. Now, for this review, for all intents and purposes, the A6M2 Model 11 and the Ryzen are the same thing. They're the same planes. There's just two of them there, just so they can like beef up the Japanese tree or something. They're the same planes basically, except aesthetically. Same goes for the A6M3 Mod 22 and the A6M3 Mod 22 Co. They're the same plane. Basically all the A6M3s are pretty much the same planes. Really no difference. Not really in the slightest, except battle rating rank and sometimes upgrades. Both A6M5s are basically the same, except for armament. Otherwise, those are basically the same as well. So, for all intents and purposes, I'm not going to be repeating some of those planes. Now, the first Zero that you unlock is the float plane, the A6M2-N. So, that has a rank in War Thunder of 2 currently. It has a battle rating of 2.3. It has a max speed of 407 kilometers per hour, a maximum altitude of 9,100 meters, a turn time of 21.2, and a rate of climb of 8.7 meters a second. So overall, the A6M2N, it's got good firepower for its tier, but it's going to be really slow, and it's really vulnerable. So you really need to keep your speed up in that thing, and you need to try and have the altitude advantage. Otherwise, you're going to die right away. Next, you have the A6M2 Mod 11, or Ryzen, because they're basically the same plane. They might have different battle ratings for each plane. Like, for instance, the A6M3 Mod 22 and the A6M3 Mod 22 Co. have different battle ratings. But this is for the A6M2 Mod 11. It has a rank of 2, a battle rating of 3.3, a maximum speed of 475 kilometers per hour, a maximum altitude of 10,300 meters, a turn time of 17.9 seconds, and a rate of climb of 10.1 meters a second. Next, we have the regular A6M3. That's what I'm flying right now in the background. You have 3 A6M3s in the game, so this is the first one. It's normally recognizable because it's white, not green like the other two. Its rank is 3. It has a battle rating of 3.7. It has a maximum speed of 503 kilometers an hour. It has a maximum altitude of 11,050 meters. It has a turn time of 17.1 seconds, and its rate of climb is 9.9 meters per second. Now this is all according to the game statistics again, so they might be different later in the game's development. For the A6M3 Mod 22, it has a rank of 3. Its battle rating is 4.7. It has a maximum speed of 504 kilometers per hour. It has a maximum altitude of 11,050 meters. It has a turn time of 16.6 seconds, and it has a rate of climb of 10.1 meters a second. Now we move on to the A6M5s. The first one only because they're basically the same plane. The first one has a rank of 4. It has a battle rating of 5.0. Its maximum speed is 527 kilometers per hour. It has a maximum altitude of 10,900 meters. Its turn time is 18.1 seconds, and its rate of climb is 10.6 meters a second. Now on to the actual review. Like I said, I've already covered the float plane, so I'm going to go into the A6M2 Mod 11 and the Ryzen. The A6M2 Mod 11 and the Ryzen are both very excellent planes, very good planes. They're very well tiered, they have very good battle ratings, they have good armament, they have very good turn time, they have good speed for their tier. The only thing letting those planes down is their ammo count. They only have 60 rounds for each cannon. But if you're coming from the British line, that shouldn't be much of a problem because a lot of the Spitfires only have, the first few Spitfires only have 60 rounds for each cannon. So it is something to get used to if you're coming from, say, the Americans or something. You need to know that you can't spray and pray and all that stuff. You actually have to pick your shots. You do have a decent amount of 7.7 millimeter, though, 7.7 millimeter machine guns. The A6M3 has a good. The regular A6M3 is a very good aircraft, which is what I'm flying out right now. So far, it's my favorite Zero right now. Simply for the fact because it's not over tiered like the A6M3 Mod 22 and Mod 22 Co. in my opinion. It's not over tiered. It's perfectly tiered. You can still get. This is when you start to get out climbed by machines, is when you get into your A6M3, just because the A6M3 doesn't have quite as good of a climb rate as some of the other aircraft in its thing. It's got a good climb rate. It can climb at a low speed, but it doesn't have a very good horizontal speed. So basically what that means is that you'll be up high, but you'll be far away from the battle. You'll be back a lot. So you won't move horizontally a lot, but you will move vertically a lot. And the A6M3 is basically where you start to get out climbs, but with the turn time you can still win the battle, and that's what you got to do. Now the A6M3 Mod 22 and Mod 22 Co are when the Japanese planes start to get over tiered, in my opinion, because they're basically the same plane as this A6M3, the regular A6M3, except they're tiered more. So think of playing the first A6M3 and think of it being tiered, 0.5, whatever the battle rating is, a whole 1 point of battle rating. You go from 3.7 to 4.7, and it's virtually the same plane. It's hardly a difference. There's like no difference at all. And for them, you can still do good in them, but it's much harder to do. They're still excellent planes if you get into lower tiered matches. Now the A6M5s, again, excellent Zeros. This is when they start to get faster because they were trying to get as much speed as possible. They have shortened wings, and the second A6M5 has a better armament than the other Zeros. So that helps a lot. It helps a lot in taking people down and shooting people to death. Yeah, shooting people to death. It helps a lot with shooting planes down, and because the the Zero's armament seems to get stale after a while, if you know what I mean. And here I go crashing after putting my landing gear on. And I was killed by a Krebs. Saddens me. P-63 King Cobras. Spaceships. Anyways, you guys, if you liked the video, please comment. Subscribe if you liked it, like it, you know, whatever you do. And if you have any suggestions, please tell me in the comments. And stay tuned for next week when I release another review of a different plane. I haven't decided yet. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. Peace.